Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Pmasher,
I'm Blacksmith.
and today we're going to talk to you about Alpha and Beyond.
Alpha and Beyond, yeah.
So guys, our Alpha patch released yesterday. Yesterday at night, and we have a whole day's worth of feedback to go over you guys, which is really exciting. I think I want to go over kind of the phases of development again, just really quickly. Then I'm going to do my normal spiel to introduce the Devstream. But we just got out of pre-alpha, which was where we were focused on core feature development, and now core feature development for the most part has wrapped, and we're moving into bug fixing and balancing and lots of stuff that people are going to see over the next couple of weeks. More content and also more features, but really the focus now is like, okay, cool, we have special stats exist, hero builds exist, how do we use them in a way which is fun for you guys? How do we get the balance right, which is going to take us multiple iterations, etc. Cool. Okay, cool. So let's start with the intro. So guys, this is a trendy dev stream. We're going to be having contests every 10 minutes to win Squire Boxers. We have an awesome picture of the Squire Boxers for you guys to see. So every 10 minutes you can enter to win one of these codes. Look at his thighs. They're so glorious.
Beautiful. Majestic
He
thighs.
definitely does his squats. And then after the dev stream, if you guys want, you can also tune into the Casters Guild. That's where a bunch of our fans, who are some of the biggest DD2 streamers, will be talking about the stream and the patch and other things for you to talk to them with.
I always watch it after the stream, actually.
Yeah, I do too.
Fantastic.
Cool. Okay, so the first thing that we want to start with is events. So guys, the patches just launched. We are continuing our hero focus events. And what's the one that's happening this weekend?
This one's all about the monk. It's the Purge Evil event. And very similar to the format of the past couple of weekends, we're going to increase the chance that you see legendary items, but most important of all, you're going to get 3 times the chance to actually get the Purging Evil monk weapon. So if you actually want that weapon and want to try out the new Serenity Aura build, this weekend is the weekend to try it. For those who don't know, if you remember, we had the special stat that was called Purge Evil, where enemies inside the Serenity Aura of the monk kills them, they detonate. We really like that idea. We want to make a build around it, so we changed it around a bit. Now, any enemy that dies from any source inside the Serenity Aura will detonate and do damage based on your defense power. So, and other like complementary passives that help out this build, obviously increasing the range of the aura, and obviously if you have them like set up in weird little Venn diagrams, if you kill an enemy inside like 2 or 3, it'll actually do 3 times the damage of the explosion. So it causes some interesting builds. You can see me playing earlier in the week in the background, trying to test it out. You'll actually see me try to do some weird little Venn diagrams with it, and yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Cool. So guys, that is the new hero build that's in the week. Now for this patch, I think we're going to be creating some new hero builds as well.
Yeah, there's going to be 4 new ones again,
okay.
And we'll talk about those in the future.
Cool. So guys, this is the new build that came out with Alpha and Beyond yesterday. It's called Purging Evil. It's for the monk. This completes our first set of 4 hero builds. We're also going to be working on another 4 hero builds over the course until the next big patch comes out as well. Oh, people are waiting for the raffle. Josh. All right, we'll see. Cool. So this weekend, like we said, we're gonna have the drop event. So ×2 legendary drop rate and ×3 Purging Evil drop rate. Now Purging Evil is only available on Nightmare mode, correct?
On Nightmare mode, and if you play the Malthus Incursion, you'll be able to get it.
Cool. All right, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Haddad has in the stream here to see how he manages to take down the enemies with this new stat.
Yep.
Cool. So we also want to go over some of the feedback of the patch and kind of just starting with some of the changes that we didn't get to talk about in the last stream that are in the game now. You guys probably saw these if they're in the patch notes. The first one was changes to drop rate. So going along with the kind of hero focus weekends and what I just hinted at, I spoiled it. Do you want to talk about how the new hero build items are dropping in the game?
So eventually we're going to be making a bunch of changes to the way you earn build items. Obviously,
they want us to fire the scavenger.
We'll talk about the scavenger.
That was clever. I like
fire the scavenger. Yeah,
he's a lazy drunk.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to gradually change the way you earn these build items. Obviously, they're pretty important. They're pretty fantastic items. Originally, our goal was to basically allow you guys to earn these really quickly because we wanted a lot of feedback on them. And as you guys, people have been with us for the past 3 or 4 weeks, have noticed a lot of like balances and changes and updates to these builds, and that's the reason why we're giving them so freely. The way it's going to function now, you only get build items in Nightmare 1, Nightmare 2, Nightmare 3. They obviously have a chance to drop when you kill special enemies and mini-bosses. Starting wave 4, you have a really higher than average chance of getting them from endgame chests when you beat a map. and eventually we're going to move more of the like complementary build pieces into that sort of system. So that's the new way you'd be able to earn them.
Mm-hmm. So the idea is, and I know there are a ton of changes in this patch, and we're evaluating a lot of them as we go, and some of them are really just making the end game tougher. And I think we're going to talk about that later. But one of the things that we're experimenting with, and this is an experiment. There's only a few builds in the game right now, so there's not much as diversity as there will be in the future. For example, after the next patch, but the idea is that you get into Nightmare, like you work in Endgame Insane to get into Nightmare, right? And then in Nightmare 1 through 3, you're really looking for these builds to get more powerful. And as you start to complete your build and complete your set, that's how you're going to be able to progress further.
The way we kind of talk about it internally, Nightmare 1, Nightmare 2, Nightmare 3 is about you kind of gathering the items, gathering the passives, making your own build in order to take on Nightmare 4. Our goal is that you can't really jump into Nightmare 4 and just use stats to beat it. You need to bring your own build, bring your own like combination of things, and that's how you kind of take on Nightmare 4.
And one more thing about the items is something Haddad and I were joking about earlier today, but I think is something that we might actually do, which is we recognize that there's always a lot of issues as these build items come in, and for us that's kind of expected, but we don't think it's necessarily being communicated well to everyone else that that's expected. Well, look at those flamethrowers, just go. That's how you set up flamethrowers. Okay, so what we were thinking of doing is in the future, hotfixes where we add in new build items, like putting a caveat saying that, hey guys, we were dropping this item a lot this weekend. We want you guys to check it out and test it out, and be aware that there's almost certainly going to be changes to the balance of the item dependingly, because it's really difficult when we're like, well, we want these to be OP because we want them to feel good, but how OP do we want them to be? And then how OP do you guys feel they'd be? Because sometimes we're like, oh, that's totally OP, and you guys are like, this thing is horrible. And we're like, well, it's OP, it's just not fun to use.
Or
OP.
Something we consider horrible ends up being ridiculously
exactly.
OP. Like the Serenity Slow. So we'll.
They want to know if you're abusing the Serenity bug in this.
No. I actually did not have Serenity Slow on me.
If you did,
If I did, I would have known about it.
Yeah.
Still watching.
Okay, cool. So those are some of the changes for build drop rates. So I also we're gonna get into feedback. I know that's what's in everyone's mind. That's coming soon. Oh man, someone doesn't know what the Serenity bug is. Yeah, awesome. Cool. We're fixing it tonight.
Fantastic.
Okay, so we want to talk about kind of the future of Dungeon Defenders 2 a little bit. So we just launched a new SKU on Steam today. It is called the Starter Pack. So for $14.99, it's actually on sale, 20% off for a launch discount. You can get into Dungeon Defenders 2. What is this? It's the same as the Defenders Pack. It's just cheaper and has less hero creation slots. So if you get this, you get $20 worth of premium currency. So you still get a big bonus. Right now you can get $20 of premium currency for $11. And you get the 4 hero accessories that come with all early access packages. So this is kind of, as we're moving towards open alpha, we wanted to give people a lower tier to get into. Hopefully we're going to get more people into the game, and we'll be able to get more feedback, which is ultimately what we want.
Yep.
We've also renamed the existing SKU of the game to the Defenders Pack. So if you guys are confused, if you guys bought the thing that said buy Dungeon Defenders 2 before, now you have the Dungeon Defenders 2 Defenders Pack.
Yep.
We just wanted to put the name on to clarify, because when we had only 2 it made sense, but now we could recognize if it was confusing. And then now this is my little glorious tease, just so, because this is our future section.
Right.
I'm not even going to say it, I'm just wait for the teaser image to come up. Wait, you can get rid of it now. It's supposed to be fast. Just on
There
off.
we go.
Okay, cool.
Kind of saw a little tease.
So we will be talking about the PS4 version soon. Nothing to announce just yet, but we will be talking about it in the near future. And so some exciting things coming with the PS4. The one thing I want to prepare everyone for, because it's good to like let everyone know things as much in advance as possible, is that the PS4 version will be behind the PC version. So the PC version is alpha now. When the PS4 version comes out, it's going to be pre-alpha. It's going to be before that. There may be some terminology differences in platforms. So PlayStation calls games that are not done yet beta. So it may be called beta on PlayStation, but it is the pre-alpha version. It is the earlier version of the PC version, and we'll be moving along that way. So I just want you guys to understand that now, and we're going to keep messaging that over and over, so when it comes out, we're really excited to get you guys controller support, really excited to get the PS4 version out, but it is going to lag a bit behind the PC version. Cool. Okay, so now we get to go into the fun stuff. Wait, no, let's do the influence vote first. Okay, guys, so cool. So first we're going to talk about the influence vote. So we do have a lot of stuff to go over for the feedback But first, influence vote. So if you guys notice, there's a new influence vote. I think this is almost one of our most voted on influence votes so far, which is really exciting. And that's because it's in the launcher now. So let's play the video and see a little bit about what this influence vote is about.
To clump or not to clump?
Yes. So basically, guys, this influence vote is about tower prevention volumes. If you guys played DD1, which I assume you have, there were tower prevention volumes around the court. You can see that here, and basically it meant that you couldn't place traps and other things right up on the court. It prevented certain strategies. In DD2, these actually exist physically, but they do not work. But people have been playing in different ways because they don't work. So because of that, we really wanted to leave it up to the community, which is, do you like how it is now in Dungeon Defenders 2, where you
can clump it up?
Yeah, where you can clump it up. Or do you like how it was in DD1 where you cannot? So we're doing a vote right now. This vote will end next Thursday, and then we will make the change accordingly.
I think it's the first time we put a bug fix up for a vote.
It is. It's the first time we put a bug fix up for a vote. It's kind of interesting. It's nice to see where people are putting their points, and I think it's really interesting to see what people's reasons are for choosing each size. Someone says to keep clump.
Keep clump.
Okay, cool. Let's go into feedback in tonight's hot fix. So this is a real meat. I want you to start with just talk about the patch in general and how you think it went.
The patch, I think it went reasonably well. There were some things we were kind of expecting, kind of sitting on. We knew that there were going to be some potential issues with them, so it was good that we wanted to kind of gather feedback on them. Obviously, the scavenger is probably all the way up on that list.
It's high on our list. We have some things to say about the scavenger tonight.
Yeah, we have a lot to kind of discuss about the scavenger. All in all, I think it went reasonably okay. I think this is one of the first times where we discover an exploit and kind of patch it in like a matter of...
We're going to be patching it in.
Yeah, very, very soon, in a matter of hours. Hopefully in the future there won't be exploits. We will continuously get a little better at this. So
during alpha and open alpha there will most likely be exploits.
Yes.
But hopefully after we've migrated past that point, we've learned enough to not have that happen. And also we've gotten really good at getting them fixed.
Obviously the way we're operating now is we want to get things to you guys as quickly as possible to kind of gather feedback. So expect things to be kind of raw and kind of unclean.
Cool. All right. So tonight's hot fix. There's lots of things that have been fixed already or are in the progress of fixing. So the first thing is nightmare accessories. So if you guys noticed, there were a portion of people who did not get their nightmare accessories. The code run was run in batches, and one of them was missed in Excel for when it got run. So that was rerun through today. So now everyone should have your nightmare accessories. And if you don't, please let us know, and we will look into it.
We'll look into it again. Something to keep in mind, obviously, if you had an item powered 230 piece of gear, and you upgrade it to be higher than 240, that still counts as a 230 gear, unfortunately. So if you upgrade it to 240 and then actually earn a 240, I don't think you'll be able to get the accessories.
Yeah. Cool. So then the next thing, why don't you talk about endgame insane and endgame nightmare? I think there's a bug fix or two there.
There's a bunch of bug fixes. We noticed some issues with I think some of the maps giving potentially a lot more experience than we intended them to. We're going to fix that. There were some minor issues with Nightmare or some exploity type things with mini bosses. Now mini bosses will only start appearing starting wave 2, which we think will be a little better. That way the wave 1 kind of tests you in Nightmare, make sure you're where you need to be, and if you get past it, then you can potentially start earning loot. What else? What are other things that we kind of added?
So I think there were a couple of maps that were ending before Betsy and Endgame Insane and Endgame Nightmare. There's some maps that are ending on wave 5, so we fixed those. Then also, this is how people were getting into Nightmare settings related. You want to talk a little bit about the Serenity
Aura? Yeah, so there was a bug. It's quite a funny bug, actually. It was supposed to be slowing for about 10-20%, but it was actually slowing for a ridiculous amount. So what was happening, players were able to, using the Venn diagram style, putting these auras up, you could almost stop enemies from moving. And obviously you'll be able to kill anything if it just doesn't move anymore. So there was an exploit with that. Thankfully, we found it. We fixed it internally. Soon we'll be releasing this hotfix, I think tonight. That'll solve the issue. And thanks to everyone who found the exploit and pointed it out to us.
Thank you for finding it so quickly. It's great to be able to fix it tonight, and I think it's on one hand it's bad that stuff like this gets in the build, but on the other hand it's really cool to see everyone kind of using the new special stats and builds that go in so quickly. Which is really great to see, and I think that means that those things are working a lot.
Another thing potentially worth talking about is like how we normalize special stats. Basically, in the future, when we want to make an update, a balance update to special stats, we really don't want to come back, look at your gear and kind of re-roll it. We don't want to keep doing that. So the way we're going to do it, obviously, instead of saving the value of a special stat, we should be saving the normalized value so that whatever number we update to, they'll still kind of keep the roll, how lucky you got, and update the values based on it. It should be working right now for half the special stats. Eventually, it's going to be working for all of them. There will be potentially some minor updates maybe next week where you'll be able to, where we'll fully transition to that system, and that'll potentially help future updates to reduce the chances of us actually needing to re-roll your gear, because obviously that's not very fun.
And then also I think related to that, we're doing a re-roll tonight's hotfix for people who have used the Serenity Aura.
So people who use the Serenity Aura glitch, we're doing a minor re-roll. The way the re-roll is going to work, anything that's higher than I think item power 340 is going to get scaled back down to item power 340. This time around, however, you will keep your stats. So for example, if I had the totem, or if I had a piece of armor that had defense, health, defense power, and it got rolled back to item power 340, it's still going to have defense power, defense, health.
Oh man,
so
everyone just loves you.
Fantastic.
So we're making a few steps forward on this as we're learning, which is really good.
And also the passives won't change, so that's another cool thing. Their values won't change. They're kind of what passives you had on the item will not be touched for now as well. So that's another really good thing. So it should be literally the same item, just with a lower item power.
What's fun is we're hotfixing the thing, but we've also hotfixed the tool we use to do the thing as well from you guys.
With time, we were able to kind of expand it a bit.
Exactly. So so that is happening today. So guys, thank you for finding that so fast, and we're kind of excited to get it fixed and see how that goes. There's a few more things before we go over feedback. We are going to talk a lot about Nightmare and the endgame difficulties and how we envision them working, and then how they are working, and then what we're going to do in the future about that. But we do want to go over, there's some special stat display issues that you guys are seeing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So there's people that might be already familiar with this. For example, if something says, if a special stat says 0.35% increase to aura range, for example, it's not actually 0.35, it's actually 35% increase. So anytime you see like 0 point and you feel like, wow, this is a really shitty special stat, it's actually 35%, ignore the 0 point. And we will eventually fix those display issues as well, but it wasn't such a high priority that we need to get it in. We're going to fix most of them with tonight's hotfix. There might be some that linger onward.
And we're aware that there are a lot of other issues being reported kind of about special stats and how they're working, and I think we're investigating all of those right now.
We're investigating all those, and potentially next week will be another update to fix all of those.
And this is my favorite hotfix note, only because it's so small compared to the other ones. Apparently there's some curtains in Happy Throne Room that were blocking the enemies that couldn't figure out how to walk underneath the curtains.
There were a couple of issues with the Happy Throne Room. The curtains were like blocking enemies in 3 lanes, and I think it was giving a whole lot more experience than we intended to, so those 2 issues were fixed as well.
So we have fixed the curtains.
That
should be the title of the hotfix. It's like the curtains are fixed. Cool. All right. So feedback for the patch. So we have a lot of questions from you guys that we're going to go over. We're going to be taking questions from the comments. We're trying to reserve most of the dev streams that are after a patch to go over feedback and to take questions live from you guys. There's some stuff that we wanted to call out and talk about just first before we did that. So the first thing was Nightmare difficulty. So how do we envision kind of the difficulty modes working in Dungeon Defenders?
Right. So the way we kind of see it happening, if we talk about campaign, you might have noticed when you're playing campaign, it's really not that challenging. It's kind of easing you into it. It's fun to play. It's an interesting progression. You're going through it rather quickly. Then in free play, you're starting to like build specific items. You're starting to realize, oh man, I need someone that's physical, someone that's magical. I need to deal with all these extra elements. The special enemies start to come online, and you start to like think a little bit more about those. When you kind of jump into endgame, now we consider you like a little bit more advanced, so we start to challenge you potentially a little bit more. We require that you put a little bit of thought into your stat choices. And now, when you're graduating from, for example, Insane into Nightmare, it's going to be the start of probably the toughest challenge, right? When you're taking on Nightmare 1, it's a whole new set of rules. Basically, it's a lot longer, it's a lot harder. It's both endurance and, You got to strategize about it a lot more. And what we really want from Nightmare 1 across Nightmare 4 is in Nightmare 1, Nightmare 2, Nightmare 3, you're making what we call the build, right? You can use some of the stuff that we added, maybe some more in the future, but you come up with your own way to basically take on the hard content. Like someone can have, 2 builder huntresses in a unique way with the Frostfire Apprentice and the Hardy Blockade Squire, and that's how you're progressing. And then the goal is to kind of test yourself in Nightmare 1, Nightmare 2, Nightmare 3, and then finally when you have your build refined, that's when you're taking on Nightmare 4. And the way Nightmare 4 works, it is by far probably the most brutal content. There's no way you can or ideally there's no way that you can go past it with just stats. You really need to think about how do I make myself overpowered to take on these really overpowering enemies.
Cool. So going back a few steps, I want to go through each section a little bit more in depth. So Insane to Nightmare. What's kind of the expected breakthrough pattern there?
Basically, once you're kind of done with Insane and you're jumping into Nightmare, you probably should start thinking about how do I want to build. It's not just the stats. It's which towers do I want to use, which towers do I want to hunt passives for. I want to make my Huntress about the Blaze Balloon. I want to make the Huntress about the Explosive Traps. So you're kind of finding all the pieces you need to make those specific traps powerful or weak in a certain way. Some people might start thinking about how they want to build their DPS hero as well. Do they want someone that has good CC? Do they want like a tanky squire, which was quite popular before this patch? Or maybe just a high damage dealing Huntress like I was using. So you really kind of start thinking about what is the formation of your 4 heroes that you're bringing in, and each hero, how do you want to specialize them? This is my Blaze Balloon Huntress, this is my Blockade Squire, and I'm going to combine all these together in order to take on Nightmare 1. And then Nightmare 1, Nightmare 2, Nightmare 3 become how you kind of test against that and refine your strategy.
So really, can you get through Insane with just one hero?
No, you can't get through Insane with just one hero, but you can potentially get through Insane with just raw stats. Like, I have enough defense power, I have enough defense health, I can potentially push through this.
So we have a question here from I Am Aesthetics who says, is Nightmare 4 supposed to be the new Nightmare 1? Are mobs like orcs and dragons supposed to have 900,000 plus HP? It seems like defenses and heroes got massive nerfs while HP pools got insanely buffed to make things harder. Even having the recommended eye power levels, Nightmare 1-2 was a complete struggle while not getting rewards worth the effort required.
Right. Basically what's supposed to be for Nightmare 4, it's supposed to be probably the toughest challenge. That's kind of the way I put it. You're going to have to potentially think about how you assemble your team, how you take on the hard content. Yes, it is intended for kind of enemies to have high HP values. We didn't really want to. We didn't really touch the heroes much. We didn't potentially nerf them that much. Obviously, we messed a lot with the builds because there was some ridiculous OPness going on there. But it's going to come down to how quickly can you kill these enemies. How can you get through these health pools a lot quickly.
And I think the biggest change from before and what we're really testing and want to see is that it's always difficult when we're in alpha and we kind of change the progression path. So before the progression path really was like, jump into Nightmare 1, like get ready to skip most of Nightmare 1, like jump to Life Root, jump into Nightmare 2 or 3, do the same thing, then get to Nightmare 4, and then start playing in Nightmare 4 and gearing up and playing. And right now the thing we're testing out is to actually have, all of the Nightmare things be somewhat of a challenge. And it's not necessarily meant to be completed in a day.
Yeah.
And now, whether that's fun or not, or how rewarding it is really the kind of feedback that we want to get from you. Because, right, in an ideal world, we have a situation where it's challenging and rewarding. You're playing Nightmare 1, you feel challenged, but you're enjoying doing it, and at the same time, you're getting good rewards that you feel are worth it, but you're still challenged. And the thing that, we always run into, and I think anyone making a kind of game runs into this, is like, a lot of times a good reward is defined as making you less challenged.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of like a balancing act of how do we do that, because if we just you find a good item in Nightmare that makes it as easy as hard, well then is that what we want to do? Do we just want to have it spike really high and then dive back down and spike really high and dive back down, or do we want to keep it up here and have it going like this? So there's a lot of balance here where we want to do. They want to see us beat Nightmare 4. Can we? I don't think we can.
I'm not sure if someone internally beat Nightmare 4. I think certainly our QA people have potentially done it. I've gotten probably to wave 6. Wave 6 was probably when I lost last time I tried with this build. Yeah, it'll be cool if we beat it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and I think that's a really great question because it really highlights kind of the purpose of the way we put Nightmare in this time is we intentionally put it in difficult to really see feedback, to see how people were beating it, to see how fun it was, and then to move on from there. So we're gonna get a lot of good feedback from you guys over the next week or so. And I think again, we can't beat Nightmare 4. That's really the point of it.
Yeah, and we were kind of with this update, we were pushing to make Nightmare 4. We wanted to make, especially the later Nightmares, harder than we potentially intended rather than easier than we potentially intended. As you might notice in our earlier patches, sometimes Nightmare was easier than we anticipated. This time we kind of flipped it around. We might do some tweaks, we might do some updates, and we'll take it from there. I saw someone asking that the max eye power that you can get is 700, but Nightmare tells you it requires eye power 800, 900, up to 1,000. That is intentional. The way kind of enemy levels are calculated is based on that eye power requirement. So that's where it should kind of hit you in the face and tell you, wow, I can only go up to eye power 700, but I need something else that's going to make me overpowered to take on this this harder content.
And that was actually, it's interesting, that was some of the way that we've rebalanced it this time, because as we were looking at the build numbers from the last time, we were like, okay, well, Frosty Power gives you an effective item power of, what was it, like 1,000?
Yeah,
it's like 1,200 or 1,400?
Almost doubles your effective eye power.
So we were like, okay, so the way we need to balance, and the method we're using now to balance the passives, barring bugs, is to make them match these eye power ranges. So the idea is that through eventually your own choice between how you mix different things, how you mix and match the special stats, you can get enough extra damage on top of what just items base stats do to get you into what would be a normal item power 800 or 900 item. But we're not going to put just 800 or 900 items into the game because then you wouldn't have the fun of creating a build. You just find them and go ahead. Cool. All right. Awesome. So that was Nightmare. So we want to talk a little bit about controller support too. I think quickly, so we know that we broke controller support a little bit. I'll
talk about it. All right.
Yeah.
So we are actively working on controller support, and in this update we kind of committed some code that kind of has it half done. That wasn't really fully our intention, which kind of broke people who were using like other software that kind of emulated some controller support in DD2. We're going to eventually patch that out so that people who are using the old solution, they can still use their setup until we fully properly support controller support. So sorry about that if we mess it up for people.
Cool. And then we've already hit on the passive.
Yeah, we talked about.
Do we want to talk about them?
Yeah, I'll briefly talk about it again. So what we're doing, we're kind of looking at all the way we're doing our passives in DD2, and potentially at some point next week we're going to release another update that's going to fix the way passives are kind of calculated, so that if we ever do a balance update, we don't need to do any more rerolls. It just automatically happens. We did it to half of them already. We'll do the other half next week.
Cool. All right, so guys, we're going to start taking some questions. We're going to start with questions from the forums. We're going to take questions from the stream as well. Definitely, I'm sure there's going to be some hard-to-ball questions, so we're excited to kind of get through these. All right, the first question is, the scavenger. Let's talk about it. That's good. I'm glad that was the first one. How did we forget? So someone was right. The scavenger got drunk and he just forgot to pick up all your items, right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just kidding.
About the scavenger, we noticed that there were some potential issues with the way people were interacting with the tib. It was causing some confusion, especially for new players, and it was potentially being used in ways we weren't intending that were quite cumbersome and irritating. So we sought out to fix that, and we fixed it by introducing the scavenger. That said, we knew that it was going to potentially expose a lot of issues with the way our inventory system works and the way you kind of interact with loot. That's potentially not a lot of fun and a little cumbersome and potentially, sometimes a pain in the ass. So what we're doing right now, we're watching, we're seeing how you guys are interacting with your inventory, and we are potentially in the future going to let you know how.
Hold on. Our stream lagged out for a second. We'll see. I think we're back. It's right when we're talking about the scavenger. We're gonna have to. I think we're gonna have to.
We'll talk about it again.
Let's just talk about it again.
All right. So once more,
the scavenger.
The scavenger.
He got drunk and forgot to pick up.
Same joke.
So angry at me. Yeah.
So the scavenger. we were basically looking at the tib, and we realized that players were interacting with the tib in ways that we weren't intending, and it wasn't really meant to be used that way, and it was causing a bit of frustration, especially for new players. So we wanted to fix that, and the way we did it was by removing the tib, introducing the scavenger with a new set of rules, and we knew that this was going to potentially reveal or expose some issues that we have with our existing inventory system. It's not really a lot of fun to potentially run around and pick up all the items yourself. It's not fun you can't really sort things in your inventory very well. You have to do it manually, and it's getting a little cluttered. We knew these problems are going to start becoming a big deal, and we're actually right now investigating things that we can do to improve it. We're not ready potentially to discuss the actual solution, but just hang in there. Let us know what you think. Let us know how you want to interact with your inventory versus the new scavenger system, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, and I think it would be good to maybe we can talk a little bit about kind of what some of the problems that people are facing. I think it'll help because they'll know that we see those problems and that we're looking at them. So I think the first problem that's really apparent right now is that players need to be able to choose which bag items go into from the battlefield. And before, a lot of players were doing that by letting everything go to your tib and then dragging it from the tib into the bag that you want it to be in. And so obviously then it's not possible to do right now because you can't get things to automatically go to your tib unless every other bag space is full.
Right. That's kind of the way it currently works. And it's a little frustrating. So potentially the things that we're looking at is, maybe we allow you a way to kind of mark a bag and say, hey, I want stuff that I don't pick up to go to this specific bag and only this specific bag, and kind of leaves your other inventory bags kind of untouched. So there are some things that we are looking at. So we're watching, we're waiting, we're thinking about the solution, and we'll eventually let you know about it.
Yeah, and then I think one of the other issues that we talked about a lot is auto pickup, and a lot of people there's a lot of things in the game that make it not fun to pick up loot compared to other games where it is fun to pick up loot. You look at something like Diablo, if there's a bunch of trash on the ground, well, you're just running, like, you are in and out of that area in 3 seconds. So it doesn't matter that stuff's still on the ground. Obviously, Dungeon Defenders are in that map for upwards of an hour or an hour and a half.
Especially in like Onslaught maps, you're just going to get
Onslaught and stuff, and so there's no way to get rid of items that you don't want to see on the ground. That's a big problem. And another one is that also, items have a tendency in the game based on where you set up kill boxes and stuff to really clump up and be in the same space. So it's like you may actually be forced to pick up items you don't want to pick up
in order to get that one legendary that's deeply
that you do want to pick up. So those are just a couple of the problems. There's actually a lot of other problems that we're looking at addressing. And really the question for us, and what we're going to be talking to you guys after the long weekend about, is is it better for us to resolve these issues by taking the scavenger and kind of giving solutions for him, or is it better for us to resolve these issues by actually making the inventory perform more in the way that you guys want it to be able to perform? So we're going to be kind of looking and weighing both those options and how long it takes to do each, and then let you guys know which we're getting in. Cool. Okay, so now let's go back and see the scavenger question, if we answered it or not. I think we answered it mostly. I think we might want to talk a little bit more about the intention behind why the scavenger doesn't sell everything. And the idea, we wanted to make a clear different, like, we recognize that there's problems with the inventory, but we wanted there to be a clear difference between what the scavenger was picking up that fell out of the rule to other things that was not your inventory and what was actually in your inventory. So that was the reason behind why he doesn't automatically sell stuff and stuff, because he's not your inventory. We're going to be looking at that and other things too to figure out which way we think will be the most fun to play that will operate on.
Yep, for sure.
Cool. So I have some questions from the stream about the changes to lightning aura placement for the monk and has hurt his damage for controlling a lane.
Probably. There were some issues with the way lightning auras were stacking, especially LSAs. There was a big problem with the way LSAs were stacking. We found that problem, we fixed it, and we kind of changed the way all of auras kind of stack, or the rules around the stacking. That could have made the LSA, specifically lightning aura as well, kind of a little worse off, but they were already in such a good enough spot that it acted as an indirect but necessary nerf. If we realize that the lightning aura is potentially too weak right now, we can potentially address the balance of it then and there, rather than having to rely on a very specific way of building it to make it effective, if that makes sense.
So I have a question from Hot Dog Momo who says that there's not really a lot of options for builds right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing anything about that?
Yeah, we're going to, obviously we can only make a handful of builds at a time. The good news is we're actively working on builds, just more and more builds. We have planned for 4 more builds coming soon, potentially in our next major update. And we're just going to keep adding more and more of these. And eventually we're going to hit like a critical point or a critical mass of builds where you guys start figuring out how to combine like pieces from one with pieces of another, and you kind of make your own thing, and you take it from there.
So guys, we have a lot of questions coming on the stream about very specific bugs that you guys are finding in Alpha and Beyond patch. Thank you guys for reporting all these bugs. I'm not going to read them out on the screen, and I don't have a pen to write them down right now. So please make sure that if you're reporting bugs here, you've also either reported them to the Tavern Keep in-game, or you've posted them on our bug report forums on the forum, so that we can keep track of them and make sure that we get them fixed in a hotfix. Cool. So we have a question here. This is, oh man, it's about Nightmare 1 as well. So not being able to get through Nightmare 1, which I think we addressed.
Yeah, we talked about it a good bit.
So guys, we really want to see, and we know that we get a lot of comments on the stream about how maybe the reroll was a little bit confusing, and if we had done a wipe instead, that players would have had to play through Insane and actually tested the progression and see what items they came out with Insane in order to get to Nightmare. I think in hindsight, that might have been the better choice. Yeah. That might have been the better choice. It's always hard to say, but definitely we want you guys to check out the progression. So if you go to Insane where you can play and then play up, kind of let us know how you feel and how Nightmare feels, and we'll work together to kind of figure out where the balance of the game is at right now. We do, in general principle, trying to avoid resetting people as much as we possibly can, as we've always kind of done with this game, because we know progression is possible. So while we're in alpha and we have to fix things at the same time, so we don't want to every day say, hey, all that work you did was for nothing. So we're trying to find ways around that, and we're improving those as we go.
Yeah.
So here we go. The third question is there a way of dealing with loot while playing onslaughts that last 3 hours plus? Because if the scavenger can only be accessed in the tavern, the items dropped from those maps could be sold before they're picked up.
So there's 2 things to potentially talk about. Obviously the scavenger is going to be one of them, but we are also looking at onslaught, and maybe at some point introducing like a shortcut mechanic or a means for you to not have to play. We know one of the problems that comes up in our community meetings, where Josh kind of tells us some of the more major feedback that in our community is it sometimes takes you a bunch of hours to reach the challenge in onslaught, and we're going to potentially be fixing that as well, which may help alleviate this problem, because you wouldn't need to play for hours just to reach to the challenge of onslaught. And to the second point, obviously we talked about with the scavenger, there's stuff that we're still working on that we'll gradually reveal to you guys, but in the short term you can potentially, once the 3 waves end, once you're between rounds, when you're basically in untimed build phase, you can pick up the items. You can sell directly from your inventory, so you can do that as well. I'd recommend picking things up, clearing out the board, and selling the things that you don't want. That way you're not running the risk of losing an item.
Cool. So the next question is about the explosive trap and elemental chaos nerf in this patch. What do you have to say about that?
Brett one of our designers made a bunch of, he's handling a lot of the heavy balance work right now. We found a problem, and that was largely thanks to our community members, where they were showing us a certain way to build the explosive trap and elemental chaos that was making it substantially more powerful. And it was a case of, hey, if you build these in this way, it is ridiculously overpowered, so we had to address that for the time being. We may look at the explosive trap and elemental chaos, and if you weren't building it that way, if it's too weak, we might potentially address that. But we will need some more time to fix that potentially, because it's a little tricky, right? It's unless you build it in a very specific way, it's not going to be useful, and we really dislike that. But we need more time to potentially fix it. So for the time being, we just nerf them back a little bit.
Cool. Okay, so we have a question from the comments here, which is from I Am Tonto. He says, what are our future ideas for the hero deck, or are we going to leave it the way it is?
We have some ideas for the hero deck. Maybe I potentially can't really talk a lot about them. We have a lot of stuff addressing solo play. If you're a solo player, what can you do? What can you swap with versus team play? So I can't really talk a lot about it, but we do have some things planned for it.
Cool. All right, so this is a question about our QA team. So how large is the QA team, and will it be beneficial for us to have more testers? So
I mean, we have a sizable QA team, and we even have a remote QA team that's comprised of a bunch of like very hardened DD1, DD2 players that, you know, we throw it up to them, we throw up builds to them, we gather feedback from them. Every once in a while, like Josh and our community team would gather certain players to come and play a specific build of the game. And, you know, factoring all those people in, we actually have a very large QA team. If you're interested in joining one of those groups, I don't know if we have like a means for people to apply, but it might be potentially good to like open it up to more people.
And I think we also have an open job rec for another QA person right now
as
well.
We do have an open
so we do have a decent sized team. So you know, that is something that we do, and I do want to let you guys know that a lot of times, and this is the reason why we're trying to be really open and honest about where we are in development, there are conscious decisions to release things with bugs. There are some bugs that we don't catch, but there's also, I think, you know, on our list of bugs when we release this patch is still like at 113 or something. So 113 known issues. So we are in early access, and we do believe that by releasing stuff sooner to you guys, we're able to get feedback on it and iterate on it quicker, as opposed to waiting very long times and trying to get the stuff really clean.
And it's not really just a belief, you know. It's giving you guys stuff to play with earlier than intended has been super beneficial for us, because we can react to things a lot faster. So it's been proven to us that, let's leverage early access, let's release things when maybe they're a bit buggy, because, you know, we're getting fantastic feedback and we're able to iterate a lot quicker.
Exactly. So the next question is about double stats on pets are not being counted as such. Is this working as intended, or is this a bug?
This is a bug. You shouldn't be getting double stats on pets. That's why when you actually see one, it only counts as one. So this is actually the bug that we will eventually fix.
Well, this is an interesting question from Brokonut. He says, when they did QA for Wakfu, there's a lot of bugs and issues only occurred when builds were implemented on the live servers, as in they didn't exist on beta. Does this happen with DD2 at all?
Well, obviously, when you open up a game to like thousands of people playing, it's very different than having 50 or 60 people playing it. So obviously, you know, when the floodgates open and, you know, thousands of people are playing the game, they're going to find potentially issues that would have been difficult for like a smaller team to find. That's just natural. That's just the way this kind of goes. Something we talked about a lot internally is potentially maybe having like a beta branch up at some point and allowing people to just jump in and play that. But that's technically very challenging for us, and we're potentially not going to solve that in the near future. But that might be a solution down the line that we can potentially investigate.
Yep. So there's a lot of things, you know, that we're looking at that we've been doing or not doing. We did an extra nightmare run through this time with a couple community members as well. So we're always looking to kind of expand those things. But this is an alpha, guys. It is like a true alpha. There's stuff that's broken. Even though we're alpha, and even though we'll be an open alpha, there will still be stuff that's broken. And I can guarantee everyone that when we open it up, there's going to be a lot more issues than there are right now, and that kind of goes towards having a lot of people as opposed to a few amount of people. And that's really why we are opening it up and why we are getting more players in order to really do the kind of testing that you need to do for a game that's going to be played by a lot of people at the same time. Another question about the hero deck.
Are we going to remove it or at least rework it? We have some things planned for the hero deck. We're currently not necessarily planning to remove it. We have some things planned, especially for solo play, that, you know, we'll potentially talk about in the future. So we do have some things in mind. So just give us some time.
Cool. All right. So the next thing is thoughts on deleting or selling spheres after the spheres UI update. After a bit, the 7 hero damage one is not very useful.
Selling or deleting spheres, maybe. I wouldn't discount that just yet. There are some things that we wanted to do with the kind of skill sphere system, like instead of owning, you know, skill sphere hero damage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe you start with 1 and you upgrade 1 to 2, and then you only have 2, and then you upgrade 2 to 3, and then you only have 3, and things like that. That way it kind of reduces the number of them, but gives you a more interesting way of getting the higher level ones. So we'll see. We have some ideas planned for that as well.
Cool. All right, so the next question is about pet rerolls. And they say, oh man, we've already answered this one. Josh told me this one was on test. Sorry, Josh. Okay, cool. Next question. Can we finally have some good filters for the inventory? So
Can we?
That's what we were talking about a little bit before, in terms of deciding where we go with inventory changes next, and do we start to implement some of those features, or do we start to implement, maybe bring the scavenger back to where the tip was? There's a lot of different paths we can take, and that's really, kind of what we're thinking about.
That's kind of actively what we're working on.
Mm-hmm. Can you make pet food of the same type stack, please? And make double-click pet food. Not that super annoying. that was my words, not nice.
Yes. So it is our intention to eventually kind of have stacking work a little better than it currently does. Again, I often talk about the priority stack. Unfortunately, this one is a little low on there. Obviously, like dealing with the scavenger, dealing with balance issues, crashes, all these bugs is gonna come first. But eventually, we'll get around to this and looking at the stacking issue. And double-clicking, making pet food a little easier and less annoying will also be up there as well.
We keep getting some comments about the hero deck, so guys, it is definitely something that we're going to look forward in the future. It was the #1 influence vote thing from Influence Week, so we're definitely looking at it more. The 4 heroes was our first step in that direction, and we're going to be doing other things in the future. So yes, I know people often come at us at both sides with that. Some people say we want to go back to only 3 heroes. Some people are like, we want all heroes. So it's definitely something that we're thinking about looking in. We really do want to make it so that you have utility for both single player and multiplayer, and that's really where we're going to be looking at the system. It's also worth mentioning to people that there's almost by far a majority of players who never even use more than one hero at all. So it's one of the always really difficult things for us, and we have kind of gone on the side of having multiple heroes as opposed to just one hero. Is how do you balance a game when a certain subset of your player population,
when a huge chunk of it is
the majority has only one hero. So those are definitely things that we're looking to work towards. And some of the things that we're thinking about the hero deck, and hoping that it's not tutorialized right now, but by systemizing it like that, people would see more benefits in terms of getting other heroes and putting them in their deck and being able to play and those kind of things. How can I get a pet ability reroll item?
Play the game. Endgame chests always have a chance to give you what we call pet consumables. So winning a match gives you a very good chance of actually getting a pet consumable item. Then you just double click it and it'll give you either like an ability reroll, stat reroll, things like that.
Cool. So I know pet rarity determines max pet stats on RNG, but what other factors are at play? I have a friend who has a mythic top cap increased +7 empowerment stats per level, where mine only increased 1 to 2.
There we did find a bug. I was talking with Philip Littman, another one of our designers. He found an interesting bug where the way pets are scaling is a little broken sometimes, where some pets are going higher than others. So we are looking into that. There is an actual problem with the math and the way the stats are calculated, and we'll eventually kind of flatten that out.
Cool. So you've mentioned in several streams that you are constrained by a lack of physics engine. Did DD1 have one? Do you plan on having one? And are you confident you can make the game work without one?
Lots of questions. Do we plan to add one? We talk about it a lot, believe me, about potentially adding some sort of physics into our game. In our design weekly yesterday with the design team, we were talking about, maybe we just add physics on the client side only, so that when an enemy dies, physics happens on the client, and we don't have to worry about server issues and server lag that goes on. Our artists are always kind of infuriated when they see a knock up on the server or a knockback, and you see the enemy go bloop, 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 rather than a smooth transition. Can we make the game work without it? Obviously, it's a big enough issue that we are actively talking about it. We'll see kind of what happens there.
Cool. All right. Next question. Oh, lightning round. Okay, so we're a little bit early for lightning round. We'll wait another minute or two. I will take some questions from the forum, from the comments. What am I saying? All right, guys. Thanks. So, Sir Norik, so there's an idea for item special properties to have them change based on what tune has it equipped, as opposed to having the possibility of getting any special bonus under the sun.
It's an interesting idea. Obviously, if you just got one item and then you had to kind of swap it between different heroes, that might be a little frustrating, because now you'd have to play the inventory game. You'd build the defense, then you swap the hero, then you'd unequip the item, equip it again on a different hero, and it kind of reduces the hunt, the idea of, I want this stat, I'm going to play this map to get this stat, and I'm going to build my heroes in that specific way. So these are kind of some of the reasons why we haven't really executed on something like that yet.
So there's some more questions about a lot of the player base only having one hero when you can't complete Insane without more than one hero, and most of the player base has not completed Insane.
Yeah, that's the thing that Phil was talking about earlier. So we have to kind of balance that, and that's kind of what we mean. Where if we are kind of requiring players to have multiple heroes, but the majority of them don't, what's going on there? How should we handle it? Should we educate players better? Should we have them create maybe an extra hero a little sooner, things along those lines that we're currently investigating.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of stuff to do there, and there's a lot of back and forth. I think before we actually had multiple hero requirements earlier than now. Now you can get all the way through free play with just one hero. So there's definitely a lot of back and forth that we're doing on this and trying to figure out our next steps, because we do think Dungeon Defenders is fun as a multi-hero game, whether you're playing it by yourself with lots of heroes or you're playing online with other people and their heroes. So that's definitely kind of one of the areas that we're always looking at and talking out with the way abilities and towers interact and the way these spells work together. Here's a question from Gary the Cool Guy 3. It says, will hero abilities ever be expanded? Like, say, having more abilities to work with, spheres which change how abilities work, etc.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I was reading one of the lightning round questions.
Oh, and you're getting ahead.
I think we should address this one a little sooner because it's not a lightning round question. It's the second one. Can you clarify the first win of the day charge system? Do I get a bonus on that map for all the XP or just the endgame chest? If he joins at wave 7, is he going to lose it? So let me clarify that super quick, although I'm jumping ahead. If you join a map and it's like wave 7 and it's about to end, yes, unfortunately you're going to waste that charge. That's something that we are kind of conscious of and will eventually fix. It counts for any experience that you gain while in the map, so it's not just from like endgame chests and things like that. So hopefully that kind of clarifies how that system works. Same for loot, right? So if you are playing the game and you get in on wave 7 or wave 6 or whatever, and you kind of wasted the token and the loot boost as well. Okay.
Cool. All right, well, let's jump right into the lightning round. We'll throw the answer for the ability spheres questions. There are ability spheres in the game, and we're always thinking about doing new ones in the future as well. Cool. All right, so lightning round. Any chance we can have hotkeys to swap characters from the deck?
Maybe.
Can you clarify the first?
We just thought, yeah.
You've mentioned in several streams where you can. Oh man, Josh. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I love you, Josh. Okay. With the other 1,200 costumes having custom VFX, I feel like the monk got the short end of the deal. Will there be visual effects added to the ninja costume?
Maybe.
There are visual effects. He has a trail behind him when he runs. He has his custom spawn. And
custom spawn, custom
there's some
jump and runs and all that.
We keep talking about this is not lightning round anymore. We keep talking about possibly adding shurikens for the alt.
That was actually planned. We wanted his right click to that's why you see his right click as a throw, but we couldn't get that.
So if visual effects are getting in for him ever, that will probably be one of them. Okay. Will there be challenge modes from DD1 added at some point?
Specifically ones where you attack crystals as DBSers. Maybe.
Have you guys considered a AoE Hoover items button, like an AoE pickup, that will allow items to still have to be picked up but in a more timely fashion?
We did not consider it, but it's an interesting suggestion.
Are you guys planning on charging money for new maps?
No.
Will you ever rebind the apostrophe key so grammar can be saved, as currently brings up something that appears to be a chat log instead?
Yes.
Is it intentional that the Frost Tower doesn't appear to be buffing defenses in the tavern?
Yes, it's a bug.
Is per ability generated random or specific for each pet?
It's a specific bucket that's chosen from randomly. If that makes sense.
Will pet power level be cheaper?
Hard to get more pets, bigger levels. Not currently planned.
Will there ever be in-game sales on bags and skins, similar to what we'd see in LoL?
Will there?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Can we have a larger pet bag?
That's something we were talking about, so yes.
Would you please implement a drop rate bonus for players who lose less damage units setting up their defenses?
That can be interesting.
Do you plan to increase the max number of bags?
Max number of bags, yes.
Can you please add more pet bags?
Yes, we just said that one.
And can we have a tooltip on mass over for the number of wyvern? Yes.
Yes. That's something
that's on the schedule.
Yep.
Yeah, that is on the schedule. Cool, guys. So I want to kind of recap everything really quick. I know we went over a lot of feedback on the stream. So the first thing, we got some people just came in. So Scavenger, yes, we are aware of the issues. We kind of knew when we were putting this in that I was going to bring a lot of issues to the head, although we didn't know exactly what those issues were or how severe they were. We've already gotten a ton of feedback from you guys in the first day over it, and we're kind of assessing now which way we go towards fixing those issues. Do we actually fix those issues in the inventory itself, or do we add additional functionality to the scavenger to let him fix those issues for you? Additionally, there are bugs right now. We are doing a hotfix tonight to fix a lot of the core bugs. We already fixed Nightmare accessories. We're fixing some problems with Endgame Insane and Nightmare. We're fixing some issues with the Serenity Aura, which means that if you have a Nightmare 3 gear or above,
340, iPower 340 or above, it gets reset to 340, which I think is the start of Nightmare 2.
So if you have iPower 340 or above, it's going to get reset tonight when we do that hotfix. And then there's also a bunch of other small fixes in that as well. There's a new SKU available, guys, so if you haven't checked out Dungeon Defenders 2 yet and you want to, for $11.99 right now, you can check out the game. And then in addition to that, there's going to be PS4 news soon. Soon in the future. Cool. So we want to just recap Nightmare 1 really quick again for everyone.
Sure.
It's difficult.
It is difficult. In this update, we were hoping Nightmare would be maybe harder than we were planning, because usually in our previous updates, Nightmare was easier than we had planned. So we went a little quite hardcore with Nightmare right now. It's all about figuring out what sort of build, what sort of strategy you need to assemble in order to take on Nightmare 1, refining it in Nightmare 1, Nightmare 2, Nightmare 3, and then taking on the biggest challenge, which should be Nightmare 4.
Cool. All right, so guys, please tune into the next dev streams. We are going to start revealing stuff from our future patches in the next dev stream. I think that if you guys have been staying tuned to the devlogs that we release every Wednesday, you've gotten a couple of really cool sneak peeks at kind of what we're working on next in the main milestone. And keep in mind now we're in alpha, so at least for right now, probably until we get into beta, the actual patches themselves are going to be not as like big and meaty, like it's not whole system adds, because during the patches we're going to actually be working on a lot of bug fixes and balance changes and stuff to try to get the game into a really fun, good place. It's going to be a process. We really thank all of you guys for being in early access and working with us on it. Your feedback is like super useful in terms of deciding, where the game's going and what's balanced and what's fun. And as we continue to go through all these systems, we think we're gonna be able to make something really cool together.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, guys, there will be reveals next week. I actually already know the one thing I want to reveal, but I have to get permission to show it on the stream. So we'll see. Sweet. Thanks, guys.